The rain hammered against the windows of our little cottage in the Cotswolds, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For 20 years, Gethin and I had built a life here, a life I thought was perfect. Gethin, with his gentle smile and unwavering loyalty, was everything I could have ever wanted in a husband. I was a software engineer, happy enough in my job, providing a comfortable life for us. We weren't rich, but we were content, or so I thought. It started subtly a few months ago. Bronwen, my wife, a talented artist, began acting differently. She had always been passionate about her work, but lately she was consumed by it. Late nights in her studio, hushed phone calls shed quickly end when I entered the room, and a general air of distraction. I chalked it up to a new project, a demanding client. I trusted her implicitly. We always had. One evening I decided to surprise her. Bronwen had mentioned needing some specific paints for a commission, so I slipped out to the art supply store in Stow-on-the-Wold, hoping to earn some brownie points. When I returned, the cottage was silent. I found the studio door slightly ajar and peered inside. Bronwen wasn't there, but the scent of her favorite lavender perfume hung heavy in the air. My eyes drifted to the easel. It wasn't a landscape or a portrait. It was an abstract piece, swirling with colors I didn't recognize, and it was signed not with her name but with the initials LB and what appeared to be a dedication. To my muse, my inspiration, my heart clenched. LB? Who was LB? I tried to dismiss it as nothing, a harmless artistic flourish. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it began to grow, nourished by her increasingly erratic behavior. I started paying closer attention. The phone calls became more frequent, her excuses more flimsy. Shed claimed to be meeting with clients, but her car never seemed to leave the driveway. I felt like I was losing her, watching her slip away into a world I wasn't invited to. One particularly cold Tuesday, Bronwen told me she had a meeting in Oxford, a 2-hour drive. I kissed her goodbye, feeling a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. As soon as she left, I knew I couldn't bear the uncertainty any longer. I had to know the truth. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was overreacting, but the feeling persisted. I decided to follow her. It was a foolish, desperate act, born of fear and a deep-seated need to protect myself from the unknown. The drive to Oxford was agonizing. I kept a safe distance, my heart pounding in my chest. When Bronwen finally arrived, she didn't head to a gallery or an office building. She drove to a small, unassuming cafe on the outskirts of the city. I parked a block away and watched as she got out of the car. She looked different. Her eyes sparkled with an excitement I hadn't seen in years. She was smiling, a genuine, radiant smile that wasn't meant for me. Then he arrived. A man tall and handsome with a shock of unruly dark hair. He embraced Bronwen warmly, kissing her on the cheek. They went inside the cafe, their arms linked, their heads bent close together as they spoke. I sat in my car, paralyzed. I couldn't breathe. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. This couldn't be happening, not to me, not to us. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged from the cafe, still holding hands. They walked to a nearby park, found a secluded bench beneath a weeping willow, and sat down. From my vantage point, I could see their faces, their expressions. They were laughing, whispering, sharing intimate moments that should have been mine. And then they kissed. A long, passionate kiss that confirmed my worst fears. I felt a searing pain in my chest, a physical ache that threatened to overwhelm me. My vision blurred, my hands trembled. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. I watched them for what seemed like hours, their every touch, every glance, a dagger twisting in my heart. Finally, they got up and walked back to the car. The man, Llewellyn, I presumed, opened the door for Bronwen. Before she got in, she turned to him, her eyes filled with an emotion I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Love. It was then that something inside me broke. The illusion of our perfect life shattered into a million pieces. I drove home in a daze, the rain blurring the road ahead. I couldn't think, I couldn't feel. I was numb, hollowed out. When Bronwen returned later that evening, she acted as if nothing had happened. She asked about my day, made dinner, and even suggested we watch a movie together. I stared at her, my mind reeling. How could she be so normal? How could she pretend that everything was okay? I couldn't bring myself to confront her. Not yet. I needed time to process what I had seen, to gather my thoughts, to prepare myself for the inevitable explosion. I went to bed that night, but I didn't sleep. I lay awake, listening to Bronwen's gentle breathing beside me, wondering how I could have been so blind, so naive. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions of my life, but I was just a shell of my former self. I couldn't eat, I couldn't focus, I couldn't shake the image of Bronwen and Llewellyn kissing in the park. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and utterly alone. Finally, I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I had to confront her, to demand an explanation, to reclaim my dignity. I waited until she was finished painting for the day, then I walked into the studio. She looked up, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "Gethin, darling, is everything all right? You look pale." I took a deep breath, trying to control my voice. "I know about Llewellyn." Face paled. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. "I followed you to Oxford," I continued, my voice trembling slightly. "I saw you, I saw everything." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Gethin, don't," I interrupted, holding up my hand. "Don't insult me with lies, just tell me the truth." "How long has this been going on?" She hesitated, then whispered, 6 months, 6 months. 6 months of lies, deception, and betrayal. 6 months of me living in a fool's paradise. 6 months, I repeated, my voice rising. "And you never thought to tell me. You just let me go on believing that we were happy." "I didn't want to hurt you," she sobbed. "Hurt me?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You think this doesn't hurt? You've destroyed everything, Bronwen. Everything we built together." "No, I know," she cried. "I'm so sorry, Gethin. I never meant for it to happen. It just happened. It just happened." I stared at her in disbelief. "You think that excuses it? You think that makes it okay?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to say. I've been so confused, so lost. I love you, Gethin, I do. But I also have feelings for Llewellyn." "Feelings?" I scoffed. "You call that love? You call betraying your husband of 20 years love?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. The truth was written all over her face. She had chosen him. She had chosen her selfish desires over our marriage, over our life together. I turned and walked out of the studio, leaving her sobbing amidst her paints and canvases. I went into the living room, picked up my phone, and called a divorce lawyer. It was over. There was no going back. The divorce was messy, as they always are. Bronwen tried to convince me to forgive her, to give her another chance. She promised to end things with Llewellyn, to dedicate herself to our marriage, but I couldn't. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. I couldn't look at her without seeing the image of her kissing another man, without feeling the sting of her betrayal. I sold the cottage in the Cotswolds. It held too many memories, too much pain. I needed a fresh start, a clean break. I moved to London, found a small apartment in Shoreditch, and threw myself into my work. I tried to forget Bronwen, to erase her from my mind, but it was impossible. She was a part of me, a part of my history, and the scar she had left on my heart would never fully heal. One evening, a few months after the divorce was finalized, I received a message from a mutual friend, Cadfael. He told me that Bronwen had left Llewellyn. Apparently, their passionate affair had fizzled out as quickly as it had begun. Llewellyn, it turned out, was a serial philanderer, a charming rogue who flitted from woman to woman, leaving a trail of broken hearts in his wake. Cadfael said that Bronwen was devastated, heartbroken, and filled with regret. She had realized what she had lost, what she had thrown away for a fleeting moment of passion. She wanted to talk to me, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness. I considered it for a moment. A part of me, the part that still loved her, wanted to hear her out, to offer her comfort. But the other part, the part that had been scarred by her betrayal, knew that it would be a mistake. I couldn't forgive her. I couldn't forget what she had done. I sent Cadfael a short message. "Tell her I wish her well, but I don't want to see her." That was that. I never spoke to Bronwen again. I moved on with my life, slowly but surely. I focused on my work, made new friends, and even started dating again. I was cautious, guarded, but I refused to let her betrayal define me. Years passed. I learned to live with the pain, to accept the past, to embrace the future. I never remarried, but I found happiness in my own way. I traveled, pursued my hobbies, and surrounded myself with people who loved and supported me. One day, I was browsing through an art gallery in Notting Hill when I saw a familiar painting. It was an abstract piece, swirling with colors I recognized, and it was signed with the initials LB and a dedication. To my muse, my inspiration. I stared at the painting, my heart pounding in my chest. It was the same painting I had seen in Bronwen's studio all those years ago, the painting that had first sparked my suspicion, the painting that had led me to uncover her betrayal. I looked closer at the painting, and I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Hidden within the swirling colors, barely visible to the naked eye, were two figures, a man and a woman embracing in a park beneath a weeping willow. I realized then that Bronwen hadn't just betrayed me with Llewellyn. She had immortalized their affair in her art, forever reminding me of her infidelity. A wave of anger washed over me, a burning rage that I hadn't felt in years. I wanted to tear the painting off the wall, to destroy it, to erase it from existence. But then I stopped. I took a deep breath and I looked at the painting again, and I saw something else. I saw the pain in the woman's eyes, the regret in her posture, the emptiness in her embrace. I realized that Bronwen hadn't just hurt me, she had hurt herself. She had sacrificed her happiness, her integrity for a fleeting moment of passion, and she would have to live with the consequences of her actions for the rest of her life. I smiled, a sad, knowing smile. I didn't need to destroy the painting. It was already a testament to her failure, a reminder of her folly. It was her punishment, her burden to bear. I turned and walked out of the gallery, leaving the painting behind. I had finally found peace. I had finally let go of the anger, the resentment, the pain. I had finally forgiven her, not for her sake, but for my own. I walked out into the sunshine, feeling lighter than I had in years. The rain had stopped, the clouds had parted, and the world was bathed in a golden light. I knew that the scars of Bronwen's betrayal would always be with me, but they no longer defined me. I was free. I was whole. I was ready to embrace the future, whatever it may hold. And as I walked away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pity for Bronwen, trapped in her own self-made prison, forever haunted by the memory of what she had lost.